Good evening, friends. I am Giriraj Dave, Public Relation Committee member from Ahmedabad Management Association. Warmly welcomes you today evening. Now, today's topic is very interesting. Being financially literate to being financially wise. The do it yourself. Now, if you go outside of India and travel to US and other countries, there are DIY concept is very popular, like do it yourself. If you have to like repair something or create something, the DIY stores are also there. Now, this is very important that we should be also do it ourselves on the financial fronts. Now, we have renowned speakers today. I will just introduce our speakers. Mr. Prit Nagersheth. He is the co-owner of Wealth Finvisor, an equity-based advisory firm with over 30 years of experience in investing. He has conducted multiple investor seminars at platforms like the CA Association Ahmedabad University and GISA. He also co-owns and manages Little Flower School in Paldi, contributing to the education sector. He has over 20 years of software experience, having worked in the USA, Singapore, and India. His expertise spans finance, software, and education, showcasing a diverse professional journey. I am facilitating Mr. Pritesh Nagersheth. And our second speaker is Mr. Vatsal P. Shah. He is the founder of Anantya Financial Services, Ahmedabad, and experienced financial advisor. He has guided over 85 clients, including UHNIs, HNIs, and family offices, in creating wealth through strategic investments in higher moated organizations. Previously, he worked with Deloitte India and Sestra India, gaining significant industry experience. He holds an MBA and BTech from NMIS Mumbai, showcasing strong academic credentials. He has also represented India at the Harvard projects for Asian and international relations in Tokyo and Boston. I will facilitate Mr. Vatsal sir. Now, without taking much of a time, now we'll start today's topic. I would request Mr. Vatsal Shah to share his thoughts.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, all the respective audience present here, for taking your valuable time out this evening and for your presence. Firstly, also thank you AMA for providing us this wonderful opportunity today. It's okay. So today we're going to speak on this wonderful topic, do-it-yourself investing. Particularly, we'll divide this topic into two broader aspects. One is qualitative side of investing and the other is quantitative side of investing, right? So quantitative is, as you know, with data, everything related to data and numbers, while the qualitative side is more the softer aspects, which is more of subjective in nature. Now, firstly, what is investing? Investing is basically a function of two things. One is capital protection and second is safety of principal and satisfactory return, right? So the first thing, meaning capital protection, is your safety of principal, and the second thing is satisfactory gains, basically a risk-free return on your investment. When you have an inflation of 6.5% or 7% as far as CPI is concerned, the basic risk-free return you would want to get on any investment is 7% plus. Simple. So when you are clear on that, then you can move for the second, gaining the second topic, which is risk. What amount of risk is best suited for you, and how much risk do one want to take? So for risk is concerned, I would like to show this particular slide. The generation who used to watch documentaries on National Geographic and Discovery would know this particular guy. His name Stephen Robert Irwin was a zoologist, and what happened to him is, while filming a documentary, Ocean's Deadliest in Queensland, Australia, he decided to film some of the shots in shallow water due to rough weather conditions. Now what happened is, this particular stingray, a mammal fish, kind of a shark, attacked him through his stingray, and it pierced Mr. Irwin's heart when he was 44 years old. Being into this field since his infant days, since over 35 years of experience, still he met with this accident. So how does this relate to investing? What analogy can we draw to investing from this particular incident? Simple, right? One is the risk we are taking worth the effort? First question. Everybody needs to answer that. Second is, are you prepared to take those risks mentally and financially, or is it your overconfidence bias? So when you answer the first thesis of what is an investment for yourself, because for answering this particular two questions, it is subjective and different for everybody, right? No one size fits all, and same happens with risk. So when you have these two questions answered of what investing means to you and how much risk do you want to take, then the only thing you need to gain clarity on is the checklist, your mental model which you would want to create for yourself for investing. And if you do not create this mental model, which is a process oriented framework, it will not be helpful in the long term. So how will we create a mental model? For all those do yourself investors, this is of primary importance. And now with data and technology available with you, you need to gain a sizable competitive advantage on this particular parameters, or else you are better off investing with professional managers. So now we'll speak on quantitative aspects firstly, which will cover annual reports, balance sheet, P&L, cash flow, forensic checks, the role of debt, capital allocation skill set, process of elimination, and starting valuations. Why are they of primary importance? Secondly, we'll talk about qualitative aspects, which is more talking about competition, the longevity or the sustainability of a franchisee to grow, the opportunity cost of investing, and margin of safety, along with corporate governance, industry tailwinds, headwinds, and how a power of a brand is of also primary importance. Okay, so talking about annual reports, what is, you can take notes from this, because out of this, nothing else is important, and this broadly involves everything which is important and you can draw from an annual report. Very simple. So firstly, when you take any annual report, you have to take at least 10 years of an annual report of a company. Why? Because any business cycle lasts 7 to 8 years, which means any business cycles crest and trough. You see a full business cycle for a 7 to 8 year perspective. If you do not take 7 to 8 years into perspective, you're gonna see only half the image or half the picture of a company, right? Whether it's a steel manufacturer or a cement manufacturer, doesn't matter. So when you take a 10 year of annual report of a company, you get to understand what's the business about. Very important. How is the market structure and the industry behaving for that particular sector? Second, management discussion and analysis. It's a 3 to 4 page report in an annual report, which is very, very critical, which states that how a CEO or a managing director of a company, what is his vision, what has he done, what was his planned vision for the year, how has he done, and what is his vision for the next year. So when you connect those dots for the 10 years in one frame, you will get an idea about how the company is moving. Is it moving in the right direction or not? Then you get to understand about the existing capacities of the company, the manufacturing capacities or technological know-how or whatever the company has, versus its existing utilization levels of the company, whether are they utilized optimally or are they underutilized. If utilized fully or at optimum level, how well are they or what good are they doing for planning for a new capex, and if they are doing it planning for a new capex, whether they are doing through internal accruals or through debt. Everything is of very very significance. Then you get to know the financial ratios. आजकल तो सारे ratios printed annual report में होते हैं. You do not need to calculate, right? Or if you go on trend lines or screeners, you get to know the ratios. Whether some of the important ones are asset turnover, interest coverage, return on invested capital, return on net worth, return on capital employed, return on equity for a financial organization. क्योंकि financial organization के लिए capital equity होता है. Capital structure of a company, how much the company is funding through debt, how much is funding through equity. Total subsidiaries and associate companies, very very important, right? Why I'll talk in the debt leverage part of this presentation. The nature of the business, whether the business is a consistent performer or a consistent company into a sector or an industry which has consistent demand, or the company which has a cyclical demand. So the total TAM, the total addressable market, the industry or the company serves, very important. Examples will be given later because we are running very short of time. Remuneration drawn by management and directors. So in a few technological companies, you will see that the CEO is taking a paycheck of 60 crores, 80 crores, 100 crores with ESOPs, and median salary of employees is 6, 8, 9, 10 lakhs, right? It's insanely non-conventional. So you need to see whether the compensation withdrawals of company and the remuneration standards are fair. Actions of top shareholders, very important. अगर promoter pledge करता है तो it's a red flag. There was a Jaipur based NBFC, as we do not name companies, whose promoter pledged 70% of his holding in a span of 2 quarters, which is a huge red flag. कि 70% of promoter holding कौन pledge करता है 2 quarter में, right? So certain things draw attention. Also, and lastly, but the most important thing one should look into an annual report is notes to the financial statements. I'll give you this example. Why is it important and what has this made us succeed in investing? क्योंकि annual report में 50% of the annual report after the P&L and balance sheet is notes to financial statements, which is the most important thing. If you do not read it, I don't think the story is incomplete. The example of notes to financial statements where we succeeded is a company called InfoEdge. In 2020-21, we saw from the notes of the financial statements that the company was a huge cash cow through its business Naukri.com. But similarly, 50% to 60% of its future revenues we saw would come from its unlisted equity investments. It's the only listed player in India which invests in non-listed equities through its 50% joint venture with Temasek Holdings of Singapore. They have a InfoEdge Ventures arm. So when we bought at 1800 to 2000, today it is 8500 or 8000, 4x in 3 years. But we saw that the company invested in Zomato, Swiggy, etc., unlisted stocks back in 2011. So when all those profits would come when it's IPO'd, it would come on the P&L and balance sheet. So only when you read the notes to the financial statements, you'll get to know that these investments are on the P&L and cash balance sheet of the company. And still today there are more than 50 plus startups where they have invested whose value is technically not on books. Disclaimer, there is no investing guideline. This is just for information. Now we come to balance sheet, P&L, cash flow statements. Okay, so I'll be very quick on this because when we speak on this topic, we could speak for 3 hours on just this particular slide. But what's the difference between a strong company, average company, weak company, and a transforming company when we take balance sheet, P&L, and cash flow into account, right? So for a strong company, the debt is extremely less or nil. The cash and reserves are high, and the balance sheet is funded through equity. For an average company, the debt is moderate, cash and reserve levels are moderate to high, and the balance sheet is funded through a mix of debt and equity. For a weak company, it is funded completely through debt, and the debt and the cash levels are negative, and the worst thing is their overall working capital cycle is very elongated. Why is basically कोई भी manufacturer है raw material procure करने के बाद sell करने के बाद the money in bank, if that entire cash conversion cycle is more than 90, 120, 150 days, then your cash flow cycle is elongated. मतलब और बड़ा धंधा करने के लिए बाहर से पैसा लाना पड़ेगा, which means your balance sheet is stretched, right? So this happens in a weak company, and in a transforming company, cash levels are increasing, which means reserves will increase, debt levels are going low, and the working capital cycle is getting crunched. So this is a general thing which you need to look at. These three statements. Firstly, always look at your P&L, which will in turn you should go into cash flow और last में balance sheet देखने का, right? And if you see sales growth, profit growth, operating cash flow, margin expansion, free cash flow, इतना पे focus करोगे तो 70% of the game is over. Now we go to forensics. Forensics is a bit specialized topic, but so one has a lot of edge if you know forensics and in accounting, right? When you do certain of those transactions which you see on the annual report, and when you actually make a comparison, for example, there is this check for chunky loan growth in financials in order to boost top line. Take a 2018, 19, 20, 3 years of annual reports for HDFC Bank and Yes Bank. You get a clear comparison on the chunky loan growth of those two banks, right? Similarly, check for related party transactions, friends, family, subsidiary companies, associate companies. पैसा कहाँ जा रहा है पता नहीं चलेगा. Hundreds of examples we'll give later. Check for auditor's observations. Auditor frequency of auditor being changed, very important. Cash flow from operations to PBT or PAT, it should be greater than 90%. Otherwise, it's a red flag. Check for past misgovernance track record. Check for exceptional items, lower tax rates, elongating working capital cycles, goodwill as a percentage of net worth. Tech companies, billions of dollars. What happened to Satyam Computers? Before accounting frauds, it was more of goodwill as a percentage of net worth that ballooned, right? How can you keep 700 million in sales company, couple of $1 billion in goodwill? How can that happen? Practically impossible. So now we move on to role of leverage. How debt kills, right? So these are some of the many examples in the last 10 years India has faced, right? I'll give you a quick hands-on on how that happened. For DHFL, they diverted 31,000 crores from loans that they had taken from various shell companies for their own personal gains. For Bhushan Power and Steel, they raised over 47,000 crores from 33 banks, and when CBI investigated in April 2019, it was known that the money was diverted to 200 shell companies, offshore accounts. SR Steel, due to delays in environmental approvals and non-availability of natural gas, SR was caught in debt trap amounting to almost 42,000 crores. But plans to rescue the company was met through the CDR, corporate debt restructuring and strategic debt restructuring levels. But again, that failed. Why? Because a commodity cycle नीचे गया. Commodity prices fell. So how can, commodity prices fell, sales का growth कम होगा, balance sheet पे profit कम आएगा, how will it repay? Biggest blunders. Lanco Infra, the policy which was reversal which was done by the UPA government in 2012, through the IEX portal now we got to know that the power tariffs were brought down from 10.78 rupees per unit in 2009 to 3 rupees per unit. 3.5x कम हो गया. So revenues dwindled and debt soared. By 2017, 60% of expenses Lanco Infra had were just to service the debt and the interest payments. Reliance Communication. First mistake, opting for CDMA technology over GSM. Time change हो रहा था. They did not change with time. Second, involved in 2G spectrum case. And third, Jio came in 2014-15. By 2017, debt soared 43,000 crores and the biggest blunder was buying and getting into 2G spectrum. So, वो बोलते हैं ना हिंदी में या गुजराती में, ચાદરથી વધારે પગ ફેલાવાના નહીં. એવી રીતના કંપનીઝ having a debt to equity ratio of 0.7 to 0.75x, beware. Because when the economy is growing and stock markets are soaring, બધું સારું લાગે કારણ કે વધે છે. પણ in the last 15 days, I will be happy to know if most of the people in the room invested. Because that is the time one should actually deploy money when there is blood on the street. And this is nothing. When 30-40% of the markets fall, that is actually when you get in, right? Now, capital allocation. This is the single most important metric in judging the quality of the management on how he deploys capital, right? Because as Warren Buffett has said, that most of the CEOs have been transitioned from the role of marketing, from the role of operations, engineering, administration to lead the company. So उनके पास capital allocation का historical data या performance नहीं है. So in order to master that, it's a challenge. So which will only come with experience. But great CEOs have done very well in terms of capital allocation. Whether it is Bharat Puri at Pidilite, whether it is Bajaj Finance, Rajiv Jain at Bajaj Finance, HDFC Bank Aditya Puri. So they have a great capital allocators, or Jack Welch of GE in the US, or Costco's example. They were great capital allocators, right? But the graph on the left, what it shows is that if you have a return on capital which is greater than cost of capital is bank se jo borrow kar rahe 6, 7, 8, 9%, whatever, and the return of capital is 14, 15, 16, 18, 20%, jitna zyada utna better, over a consistent period of time, and sales profit growth agar 10-15% se zyada liya, right, either 10% consider kiya hai. So for 10 year, if somebody is invested today, say 2025, so 2035 mein agar dekhega, so for every 10 year rolling return, what you would see is these investments have outperformed Sensex by 8 to 10% for every single 10 year, right? Why? Because capital allocation and valuation, these are the two most simple and most important metrics in any investment. If you overpay, you are gone, and if you deploy your capital well, you are great. So when you come to the lower quadrant, when you have a return on capital of greater than 20% and sales and earnings growth, profit growth of greater than 15 to 20%, that 20-20 combination is the formula for success. But again, this is quantitative side. Qualitative is, we'll talk in, the qualitative parameter is the sustainability of that competitive advantage. If that sustains for the next 10, 15, 20 years and you buy at a reasonable valuation and margin expands, you are much better off. So as we spoke of Costco, the founder of Costco used the process of elimination. What he mentioned here, that in their business model they used a process of rejection. What does this mean is, by using a business model of having a ticket entry size of $65 वाले कस्टमर्स, मतलब पहले एंट्री फी रखा टू फॉर यू टू गेट इनटू अ कॉस्को स्टोर, $65 membership you have to take, otherwise you're not allowed. And when somebody takes that $65 membership, it's like a customer is serious, otherwise he would not take that. So when that happens, most of the sale happened in bulk, large volume purchases. Time pass वाले customer नहीं आते थे, $2-5-10 वाला sale, all bulk buying. So this strategy is what they approached. So as an investor, you need to reject businesses and carefully invest in certain high moated businesses. Lastly, about this is starting valuations. On the first graph, what you see is a company. Which company is it? Can anybody name? Early 2018 to 24, 6 years, zero returns. It is a darling of Indian stock market. All three examples which we'll talk about. Correct, 100%. So 6 years it gave zero returns. Why? Because starting valuations were very high. Second, this company, late 2008, say late 2020, 12 years, zero returns. Tata Steel. Third, early 2009, early 2017, 8 years, correct, zero returns. Why? Because as you can see, it's very easy that when a stock will grow is when the earnings or profit will grow. But in any industry, earnings multiple and valuations get re-rated and de-rated. The only example we'll take is after COVID, the entire pharmaceutical and specialty chemicals sector got re-rated. And when that re-rating P multiple happens, the discovery of price stock happens. And that is where you get a X time compounding to the earnings growth. And if it contracts, it deteriorates. Classic example, Avenue Supermarts over last 2 years. Or, if not price, time correction. Now we'll shift to qualitative aspects of investing. So firstly we'll talk about the Porter's 5 forces, threats to competition from rival firms. Example, what happened when Jio entered the telecom industry? Large price wars. Third telecom player is almost there because the government wants no duopoly and oligopolistic structure. That is why it is surviving because of the high debt. Vodafone Idea, right? So price war happens and disruption happens. Same happened with HUL when they introduced Ayurvedic products, and what happened when Patanjali Foods introduced and came to the market, right? High extreme competition. Same threat from new industry entrants. Today, what are we hearing? Birla Opus, Grasim, denting Asian Paints. Stock price of Asian Paints, 15-year correction. 52-week low. And similarly, what happened with BYD and Tesla? What did they do in Japanese and European markets? Volkswagen has already closed 2 plants in Europe. Why? Same thing. Threat from new industry entrants. They were not prepared. It was all discounted. Third is bargaining power of suppliers. What happened to Maruti Suzuki when there were labor strikes at their Manesar plant? Because of labor compensation norms, it disrupted the entire value chain of Maruti Suzuki. Similarly, bargaining power of customers. This particular aspect talks about that what happened to a company, say like HUL, or say Adani Wilmar. From refined sugar or refined cooking oil, people are shifting to healthier options. From sugar industry to stevia based products. So it's a value migration in happening, right? Which was again it was not, people were unknown. And threat from substitute product services, right? So today ethanol, biogas, LNG, CNG, people want to go into hydrogen and fuel cells as well as battery oriented cells, but only robustness and cost effectiveness of that particular parameters will drive the success of ethanol based fuel or hydrogen based fuel or battery cell, right? But these 5 forces you should take into account while evaluating the qualitative aspects of competition into account. Second is moats. Moats is nothing but sustainable competitive advantage. जो हमने बात किया कि if I am a brand today, how long will I survive for the next 20, 30, 40 years without getting dented? विराट कोहली जो पहले था, अभी भी विराट कोहली का इमेज है, but scoring average कम हो गया, right? Because that consistency has declined. Same happens with companies. So what are moats? Moats are, for example, patented technologies, IT और tech companies के लिए. Low cost manufacturers, whether it is Interglobe Aviation in aviation sector, whether it is a chappal manufacturer such as a Relaxo or a retailer of DMart. Of course, last 6 months में Zepto is making denting the market of DMart, but sorry, overall it's a low cost manufacturing game. When you, then there are other modes such as higher switching costs. For example, there's a company called AIA Engineering. What does it do is, it is into high chrome grinding media. अभी वो क्या होता है, we'll take it in person, but these companies are where there are large switching cost. मतलब customer जो AIA का product use करता है, उसको दूसरे competitor के पास जाना है, तो it will take years to replicate and break that chain and go elsewhere, right? And lastly is the network effects. For example, last 100 years में Marriott ने जितने rooms और inventory add किए, last 10 years में Airbnb ने किया है, right? So because of network effects being asset light, same is with Zomato, same is with Naukri.com, right? Today, tell me which recruitment person in any company would do without a Naukri.com platform. वो LinkedIn की बात करते हैं, that is only for at a CEO, CXO level and only at a very upper senior management. बाकी Naukri.com के अलावा कोई recruitment वाले को चलेगा ही नहीं. So that's how the deep moat is, right? And lastly, reputational advantage, like House of Tatas. Tata से कोई भी चीज आता है, whether it is consumer, motor, steel, you just have a blindfold faith कि हाँ ये house या ये brand कुछ गलत तो नहीं करेगा. So these are the sustainable moats which a business can have, which one should take into account while investing. Now we go to opportunity cost of investing. We'll quickly, because we are running short of time, 5 minutes, we'll finish this. Opportunity cost of investing is basically a blend of how much investing one can do in terms of initial research versus maintenance research. बोले तो, if how many companies can you study and just buy and hold, which are like जिसमें demand consistent है. Like for example, if you see FMCG, like if you buy a company called Britannia, उसमें क्या research करोगे? Every दो हफ्ते या 2 quarter में वही बिस्किट बनाता है, वही food products बनाता है. You just need to check, keep a basic check. Versus a company which is into pharma, एक US FDA का observation आया, your sales are dented, right? So the thing is, only for those who want to have a higher unit of stress into their investing and who want to have more, who want to gain, share more of their time towards their own investments, उसके लिए maintenance research part of investing is important. Otherwise your opportunity cost of investing into just IR वाले firms, you are better off. Buy and hold for long periods of time. A classical example in this industry is a company called Thermax. Thermax, what does it do? It makes and helps prepare steel plants, right? Furnaces, steel plants, वो सब. तो उसमें अगर केपेक्स साइकिल होता है, नया स्टील का कैपेसिटी एडिशन चाहिए, तभी कंपनी का टॉप लाइन बढ़ेगा, करेक्ट? विच इज अ सिक्लिकल बिजनेस एंड विच इज इनटू एमआर. वर्सेस a company which falls into IR category is a company like Vesuvius India, which is a refractory player, which बोले तो thermal insulation करता है steel plants में, in short. तो you need to figure out what is more suitable to you, MR kind of an investing or a IR side of an investing or a blend of both. right? What personality of investing suits you? Okay, margin of safety. When you have a 10,000 kg or whatever, 30,000 pound weighing bridge, you cannot have 4 trucks of 10,000 pounds on it. Otherwise, the bridge will collapse. So what happens when you know that the company's intrinsic value is 100 rupees and you are buying it 120 or 150? Simple. Your investment will collapse. Hence, margin of safety is very, very, it's like the cornerstone of investment success as far as Benjamin Graham, the father of value investing, is concerned. Lastly, corporate governance. So corporate governance or any management, we define it into 3 parameters: perfect, imperfect and junk. जिसको minority shareholders की पड़ी ही नहीं है वो junk में आता है. जिसको जो the promoters who are great capital allocators, who are not oriented to money and they're just focused on business. Share price 100 रुपए हो या 10,000 रुपए हो, does not matter. MRF, Page Industries, Mr. Jinomal, brilliant promoters, right? Why? Because they are only and only focused on their business, not the stock price or capital allocation, and minority shareholders. Creation of brands. What you should focus is, ये ब्रांड ऑलरेडी बड़े हैं इसलिए हमको याद है. जो नहीं बड़े हैं वहां मल्टीपल एक्स रिटर्न्स मिलने वाला है. दैट इज वेयर वी शुड फोकस ऑन द शेयर, माइंड शेयर, शेयर ऑफ माइंड इज वेयर द मार्केट शेयर इज. इफ यू फोकस ऑन टुडेज माइंड शेयर, टुमारोज मार्केट शेयर लाइज देयर, राइट? फेविकॉल बोले तो पिडिलाइट, रॉयल एनफील्ड बोले तो आइशर मोटर्स, तनिष्क बोले तो टाइटन, जोमैटो, चेतक, बजाज ऑटो, स्प्लेंडर, पल्सर, हीरो मोटो, etc. Naukri.com, InfoEdge. Lastly, what you should have a look at is whether you are in the right direction. Industry which is not into headwinds and into tailwinds, because headwinds such as economic downturns, regulatory challenges, geopolitical uncertainties, market saturation, stiff competition, disruptions will take that PE multiple out. It will suck and not give you that kicker, right? And lastly, the total addressable market and what is the overall migration which is happening. A classic example is a B. At today, if you talk last 2 quarters, the entire passenger vehicle car market is degrowing or stagnant. मारुति सुजुकी जो कितना देती है पे लास्ट 15 ईयर से मल्टी बैगर रिटर्न दिया है, इट इज नॉट ग्रोइंग, बट अ सर्टन सेगमेंट इज ग्रोइंग, luxury cars. So a company which is into selling of Mercedes Benz, a landmark cars which is listed, is growing in double digits. So the value migration is happening from basic to luxury. So you need to spot that. Same happens with watches. जो आदमी पहले सोनाटा पहनता था वो टाइटन पहनता है, टाइटन पहनता है वो ओमेगा पहनता है, ओमेगा वाला रोलेक्स पहनता है. So through ethos you had to play that theme, or KDDL, one had to play that theme. So these are all past performance. We should focus on the future performance. Lastly, I would like everybody to read this particular slide because that's the last slide and the most important. To summarize, when you invest on your own, one should know this: a giant ship engine failed. The ship's owner tried one expert after another, but none of them could figure how to fix the engine. Then they brought in an old man who had been fixing ships since he was a young boy. He carried a large bag of tools with him, and when he arrived, he immediately went to work. He inspected the engine very, very carefully, top to bottom. 2 of the ship's owners were there watching this man, hoping he would know what to do. After looking things over, the old man reached into his bag and pulled out a small hammer. He gently tapped something. Instantly, the engine lurched into life. He carefully put his hammer away. The engine was fixed. A week later, the owners received a bill from the old man for $10,000. The owners were like, he hardly did anything. So they wrote the old man saying, please send us an itemized bill. The man sent a bill that read, tapping the hammer was just costing $2 and knowing where to tap cost $9,998. So what does that mean? When to buy, how to buy, what to buy is where the money is. बाकी सब कुछ नहीं. And when to sell, what to sell, how to sell is where the money is. Simple. Thank you.
So I wanted to just carry it forward what Vatsal said, which is we are starting with the other concepts that are very important. One of them is obviously compounding. I think everyone here understands the concept of compounding. Anyone here who doesn't get what compounding is? Right? Most money, by the way, is made in compounding. 90% of Warren Buffett's wealth was created after he turned 70 years old. Okay, right now he's 90. If he lives 10 more years, way more wealth will be created in the remaining years. Albert Einstein says is the best. Compounding is the 8th wonder of the world. And the reason I say this is because the next slide, right? Which is that most of the time we are waiting right time to invest. Sab यही होता है ना, अभी market गिर रहा है, how many have invested? Let me see a show of hands, right? How many were thinking कि नहीं, I'll wait, let it fall 10-20% more, then I'll invest, right? We all think that, it's psychology, right? There's a great example of Mr. Bean, a very funny guy. So imagine in 2010, the index was 20 odd thousand, he waited. Now he's waiting in 2012, he's waiting in 2014, now it is 2023, the index is already 70,000. What did he gain by waiting? Nothing. So the most important element to consider is that time in the market is more important than timing the market. You know, the fall that recently has happened, many of you would have thought, na, कि what if we had sold that stock? आया ना सबको कि ये बेच दिया होता 100 रुपए में, अभी it's 70 rupees, मजा आ गया होता. But I'm telling you that is trying to time the market. And that is where that complexity of what I was saying comes in. Investing is simple. If you buy good businesses, if you hold them, you do not need to worry about timing the market. Okay? And the reason why you should not time the market is the following. This is India. Today, India is anywhere between what, Vatsal? $3-4 trillion economy. So, there is a guarantee I want to give you. And this is like Modi sahib ni guarantee ati na? Election mate ni. Every I want to give you one guarantee of mine. That the market in the next 7, 8, 10 years will be more than $7 trillion market. This is a guarantee. This will happen. So imagine India from 1947 till now created $3.5 trillion of wealth. That's the economy. From here, in the next 7 years, it will create double of that amount, 2x of that amount. We will know people around us who are billionaires. આપણી આજુબાજુમાં લોકો હશે જે અબજોપતિની ઉપરની લેવલના પૈસા હશે. Because that is where the market is headed. So if you now try to time the market, નીકળી ગયા, વેચી કાઢ્યું, the market goes up, you will be left behind and you will not participate in this wealth creation. That is a guarantee to happen. Okay, absolute guarantee. And I have a slide here where I will show you how easy it is for it to happen. So before we go there, I want to start with the simplest questions, right? Returns. We are all here for returns? Yes, me also. So what is the return expectations we have? Any guesses? साल में कितना चाहिए? Like Maruti की ad थी ना, कितना देती है? Everyone remembers that ad? That is who we are as Indians. Huh? Our first thought is, what do we get? Sale, anything free? We all love that, right? This is also a free program. And we are loving it. So just imagine that returns is what drives us. So let me ask you, all these DIY investors over here, what is the return you are expecting? Any number? Sorry? 15. Any more? Bas, 15. 25. No aggression. No 40, 50, 100. Maximum. Right. So look, we all want maximum returns. Perfectly said, sir. But it is not possible to do that. It's like on a highway, your car can go 200 miles an hour, right? Some of the newer cars can. But can you drive? What will happen when you drive on 200 kilometers an hour? Accident. So when you go for returns that are crazy, it's an accident that's going to happen. So all the DIY investors, first rule, after you have done what Vatsal has told you, is to ask yourself, what is the return you want? I have a reason how I go about my returns and I will talk to you my logic for it. Okay? Here is a slide that says that Indian markets have delivered close to 16% returns, right? You see that figure? Over a 20-year period. So Indian stock market, अगर आप कुछ नहीं करते हो, पैसा सिर्फ निफ्टी में डाल देते हो, इंडेक्स फंड में डाल देते हो, your money will grow at 16% per year. Now, you are saying, no, I don't want 16, I want more. Fine, go to mutual funds. Mutual funds will give you about 18 to 20, 22% returns. You're saying, no, I want more. Fine. Go to experts, right? Experts who manage your money. They will give you anything between 20 to 25% returns. Now, all these people, with all the work that they do, if they are unable to cross this threshold, what should be your reasonable threshold? And we'll come to that. Right? So, here is the simplest way of calculating the returns that are possible. Driving a car without accident, which is India's GDP is growing 6 to 7%. Yes? What is inflation? 4 to 5%. So nominal GDP is 11 to 12%. This is a very important number. Everyone should focus on this. 11-12% is the growth that is average available in the Indian market. Good companies will grow above that. Leading companies. And poor companies will grow below that. So it is easy to get good, high quality companies with great management, the ones that Vatsal mentioned, at 15 to 20% return. 15 થી 20% top line growth વાળી companies મળે છે. When you grow your top line by 15 to 20%, your PAT, your bottom line, your EPS will grow a little bit more. Why? Because of operating leverage, because your expenses are divided among a larger share of revenue, so you will start making more money on your PAT. So, the goal should be for everybody seated here to identify businesses that can grow at 20-25% per year. That is PAT and 15 to 20% top line. This is like driving your car at a speed of 40. No chance of accident. Okay? So everyone should look at, when you research a company, your question should be this: what are you expecting? What is the return threshold that you care about? Then invest in it. If someone tells you कि ये ले लो stock 15 दिन में double, तो फिर accident guaranteed. Okay? So be careful. So this brings to me my favorite topic. And I think after you know everything, you will realize that the biggest impact, okay, that it has on your portfolio is allocation. How many of you have companies that have done 10x? But you feel, arey yaar, kash zyada liya hota. Any hands here? Right? I feel that way. There are companies that I have bought in my past where I wish I had allocated more. Right? How many of you have hundreds of companies in your portfolio? Zoo कितने लोगों के पास है? 50 companies, 70 companies, 90 companies. 10 share ले लिए, मतलब whatever, you bought 0.5% of your allocation, 1% of your allocation. How many have that many companies in your portfolio? As a DIY investor, you cannot have many companies in your portfolio. Because if you do, it will be problem. Now, the reverse is also a problem. What if you have 30% allocated to one company? What you have 50% allocated to one company? And that company doesn't do well. Your returns are gone. Worst case, that company gets embroiled in a scam. Satyam. Who knew Satyam had a scam behind it? Did we know that? Right? It was such a big scam of its time. It was considered one of the bluest of the blue chips. If anyone here remembers Satyam or had in your portfolio, right? It was the best company to ever buy. And you realize the entire thing was a scam. If you had 30% allocated to Satyam, you're done. Your story is over. Right? So balanced portfolio is important. Anywhere between 15 to 20, 25 stocks in a portfolio is the right way to allocate. Okay? So let's look at an example. Right? Company A, you purchased it at 100 rupees. The stock triples, okay? 3x. Amazing. You got a gain of 3x. Do you know how much your portfolio moved if your allocation was 1%? It moved by 2 percentage points. Okay? Reverse, you have a company that has only grown 25%, but you had allocated 8%, then that company would have still given you 2% gain on your portfolio. Now tell me, which is easier to find? 25% growth or 300% growth? What is easier? Obviously 25%. You go out there, you will find hundreds of companies that can give you 25% returns. Safely, securely, great companies, good businesses. You're not going to get that in 3x. So I follow a framework, I personally follow a framework called 358. Very easy mathematics, 3 plus 5 is 8. Simple maths. I always start my allocation with a 3% allocation. Any stock I buy, if it is less than 3, I don't buy. Because I want to show I'm serious about it. I'm interested in understanding the company. I'm not saying single buy, I'm saying a tranche of buying. Like over a period of a month or 2 months, my first allocation will be 3%. If I buy 3%, I'm interested. I'll read up, I'll follow up, right? So it makes me work harder. If I like the company, then subsequently I'll increase it to 5% allocation. If I love the company, I'll increase it to 8%. That's it. I will not go above 8% threshold in my investing. Then if the company does well, it becomes a 3x, 5x, 10x, I let it ride. Okay? But 3 plus 5 equals to 8 is the mantra to remember when you look into your portfolios. And make sure you review your portfolios and see where you stand with respect to these allocations. So now we've spoken about some very critical components in terms of all the various frameworks, all the various quantitative, qualitative, you know EPS, you guys know PE, you guys know book value, all of that, right? ROCs, everything is done. But how do you bring that together? How do you know which stock to buy? Does that tell you which stock to buy? Or that is the framework that you use to filter out the stocks you want to buy? It's the filter, right? So how do you decide on stocks to buy? So I'm going to share with you what I do to find out new opportunities. Because end of the day, we are all here to make money. And to make money, you have to buy a stock. To buy a stock, you have to know which stock to buy and why you're buying it. So I want to share with you how I go about my business. This is what I do on a daily level. Okay. And this is after I'm close to 50 years old. So this is after being in the market for last 40 years. Okay. Not 40, that maths is wrong. So close to 30 years. Yeah. I just wanted to check if everyone's awake. All right. So, super. So the first slide, okay, I want you to focus on MNRE to drop reverse bidding and to invite bids for 8 gigawatt annually. This appeared in the newspaper somewhere between 21-22. And newspapers are the best way to track government policy changes. See, change is what, if you understand, will create value. Right? We all understand that? If a small company becomes a large company, money is made, value is created. That's about it. That's the simplest of investing. So, when this announcement came, this is impacting wind sector. Which sector? Wind. So, did you guys notice that suddenly Suzlon started going from 8 to 10 to 12 to 14? How many of you noticed that? Right? Lot of us noticed, no? What were we thinking? Suzlon che, penny stock che, satto che. Yes or no? Right? And we were afraid. Why we were afraid? Because in the past, many we know have lost money in Suzlon. But do you know this was the reason why Suzlon and Inox Wind went crazy? What did the government do? They said that the wind sector was not performing at all. In 2021, do you know how much wind capacity was added by the government? It was less than 700 megawatt, which is 1/10 of that number here. So in 22, the government MNRE says, from next year, we are starting 8 gigawatt. 10 times more than what was done in the prior years. What do you think will happen to the 2 listed companies that were out there? Kya hoga? That entire business is coming their way. So what happened to Suzlon? Went from 7-8 rupees to 80. Today it is 60. Inox Wind went from 30, 40, 50 rupees to about 1100, 1200. Today it's X bonus 170 rupees. This is the rate of change that emerged because of one policy change. So when you read the newspaper, you see a policy, research it, look into it, read about it, and then try to find the companies that can benefit. Apply the format that Vatsal said, look at the TAM, and then try to figure out who are the beneficiaries. Second policy, 3 trillion power distribution scheme may get extension. Do you know what this scheme does? Government is spending lakhs of crores on the power sector. Why are they spending lakhs of crores? Why? Because all of us are using more energy, right? In everyone's home, energy is being used more. ACs are more, phones are more, devices are more, lights are more, LEDs aa gaye. We are all using more energy. Because of that, the energy bill of the government, the energy usage of the government has increased rapidly. So government is now worried. If I don't have more power coming my way, how will I service everybody? So in May, India runs on deficit in power. Many states have load shedding. Power doesn't come at many days of the week. Anyways, so government says, let me spend money on it. So let me ask you this. Who spends money for government? If government has to spend money, which is the agency that will use that money and start the projects? REC and PFC, two nodal government agencies for finance. Do you know what happened to the stock prices in the last 2 years? Who has REC, PFC here? Right? The amount of money that was made was simple. They had to give the money out. When they give the money out, they are going to make profit on it. You don't need anything else to make that connection between the two things. All you need is to read this and work on it. If you do this and then you apply all the framework, you will get to the winners. It's as simple as that. No rocket science, by the way. Right? Look at the third thing, ethanol blending. What happened? How many companies benefited? Who invested in Praj? Praj, sugar companies. Sugar used to be a cyclical, it still is a part of sugar. But as soon as ethanol came in, sugar became a structural company, structural industry. Do you know why government is doing all these things, by the way? Because government wants make in India. Why make in India? Because we were otherwise sending money outside. If you send money outside, who benefits? Foreigners, right? You don't want that to happen. You want your farmer to benefit. So if I'm buying petrol from Saudi Arabia benefits. If I'm buying ethanol, my farmer benefits. My farmer benefits, he spends money in the economy. You will see this theme everywhere. If you follow government, government is going after Make in India. That's where your multi-bagger opportunities lie. So focus on that. PLI, another great example of that. How many PLI schemes have come in? What has happened to Ember? What has happened to Dixon? What is the amount of money that these companies have made? Anyone here with Ember and Dixon? Right? 10 times the prices have gone up in the last 3 years. You know why? Because the laptops, mobiles, all the electronic manufacturing things we use, they are all being changed. They used to be all imported. Everything was coming in. Today, India is a net exporter in mobile phones. This is the reality, by the way. Laptops, India will very soon become a net exporter. In the next 3 years, 4 years. It's because of these government schemes. So companies that are working on these areas are great places to invest. I'll carry the theme forward. Defense. Everyone is aware of defense? Defense, what happened to HAL, BDL, so on and so forth. I can give you name after name. What happened to them? BL, BAL, all people who are in that space or that ecosystem have seen their money go up, have seen their revenue go up, profits go up. Money was made. Nal se jal, right? This is in the bottom corner is a new rule coming by the government called EPR. It's an early rule. And this is a homework for all of you here. Anyone who's interested in researching their own company and investing on their own should understand the impact of EPR on it. It's an extended producer's responsibility. In short, government is saying that now there is a lot of recycled material available. So if I'm making a tire, right? Tire mein kya jata hai? Rubber. Do you know that India puts money outside for rubber? Because a lot of rubber comes from Malaysia and other places, Thailand. We buy from there and we are losing our forex over there, right? Now, instead of that, if you recycle your rubbers, your tires, which are old, what will happen? The money will stay here. Same like ethanol, ditto story. So this is a new norm that has come by the government. That recycling of becomes a responsibility. Meaning now government will say to a CEAT, that CEAT of the 100% that you used to buy rubber, 20% will have to come from a recycling plant. This is compulsory, mandated by the government. CEAT will buy from some company. If that company is listed, what will happen? The company will do well. Simple. Basic maths here. So this is the homework for all of you here. If you're serious about this, follow it up. Okay? Same thing with regulation with wastewater treatment, right? EMS and Wabag Waters, they are all beneficiaries of this theme. Okay, smart electric meters. The biggest thing that is running in the papers. So I have put a date here, right? Somewhere in 2021. At that time GMR or at that time Gensol or any of those companies, the market price was 1/10 less than what it is today. Okay, these were not doing any work. Government said we'll install 25 crore smart meters from zero. 25 crore. What happens to these companies? Their fortunes became great. Okay. Similarly, transmission. Again, this is going on right now. Government will have to spend on transmission. This has just kick-started about a year and a half back. And the more amounts of money are going to be spent over the next 3 years. So who benefits in transmission? Power Grid, Adani Transmission, and so on and so forth, right? These players will get a lot of business and hence they will do well. So focus on these areas. Another area of theme, a change that comes in, is from business fundamental changes. So if you are a DIY investor, you are waiting to spot when a business makes a change. And when that business makes a change, you want to understand why, research it, and maybe that's your opportunity. Look at the slide here, right, on the right hand side. Sanjeev Goenka, sick about 4 months back, the owner of PCBL, CESC, so on and so forth, came up and says, my profit will be 5x in 5 years. It's written there. Okay? He's coming on national television and saying this. Profit 5x in 5 years. He may do it, may not do it, is a separate story. But should you not research and find out if Sanjeev Goenka is so optimistic about him, let me understand what's going on. What if he delivers this? What will happen? Will the stock at a minimum be 5x in 5 years? It should, right? You don't need to do anything else. If you understand that business, you've got a 5-bagger in your hand. Tata Power publicly came up and said, my profits will quadruple by 2030. Publicly, Tata Group company. Have you ever heard Tata Group company say that publicly? Tata Power did that, right? Inox Wind, this guy, when that government thing came up, he came up publicly and Devansh said that we will execute 2 gigawatt of execution when they were doing 100 megawatt. 100 megawatt to 2 gigawatt is 20 times execution. He's saying this, okay, look at the Q2 when he said it, right? And this was prior to it also. Okay. Gujarat Industrial Power Corporation. Again, a company that is saying that today my capacity is 800 megawatt. In 2 years, how much? 2 years, my capacity will become 2375 megawatt. And my capacity will almost triple in 2 years. Now look at this business, beautiful business. This business has no sales, no marketing. Why? Because it produces power and it sells it. It has already sold it at 2.73 per kilowatt to GUVNL. GUVNL has bought it. Khatam. So now all this company has to do is put up the plant. Yes, there is a risk of delay, but that's about it. Once that plant is completed, this company will start making a lot of money from here. Simple as that. No rocket science. Inox Green says we'll go from 3 gigawatt capacity of maintenance of wind turbines to 10 gigawatt capacity. And this is given the wind sector change that has come in. Last is Gujarat Fluoro. They recently announced a 6,000 crore capex. So everybody here who is following these kind of companies, follow company announcements and capexes. So someone may ask me, where do you find company announcements? So where do you guys look? Right? Do you look at websites? Do you look at BSE India? Do you look at Screener? Do you look at newspapers? There are hundreds of tools available today to make your life easy to scan for such announcements. Please make sure you do that. Okay. Another great opportunity is bad times. Now, this is where opportunity comes. How many of us remember the Maggi crisis? What happened 10, 12 years back? I know Abhishek and we were discussing this at that time in your office when the Maggi crisis erupted and you were buying it, Nestle at that time, right? Maggi, because of Maggi crisis that erupted, Nestle lost about 30-40% of its market cap. Okay? But here is the important information. Do you know how much Nestle contributes to, Maggi contributes to Nestle's bottom line? Any idea?
Less than 5%, 15%, less than
5% or lower. Do you know which product contributes to Nestle?
Baby milk.
Baby milk. Now imagine, જે પ્રોડક્ટથી લેવા દેવા નથી, એના વે છે, એની રેપ્યુટેશન છે, પણ પ્રોફિટને કોઈ ઇમ્પેક્ટ નથી. And the stock is available 30% down. In Nestle, bluest of the blue chip, શું કરવાનું? ખરીદી લેવાનું. That's an opportunity, right? Same thing happened with Cadbury. Cadbury got Amitabh Bachchan in, the worm story, he brought trust back, stock price came back. Simple. This happened a year back. Polycab, income tax raid. How many of you read this? How many of you saw the fall in the price? Many. Do you know the market cap that got eroded? 15,000 crores. Do you know the demand that the income tax government had put and which then settled at a much lower number? They started with 1,000 crore. They settled at a negligible number. The entire 15,000 crore market cap came back in the next few months. So when you hear bad news, that's an opportunity. Not to buy, but to research. But to know that this is an opportunity. Let me look into it. Okay? You know what happens with all of us is we have biases. We know 3 companies, we'll stick to those 3. But if you start reading and researching more companies, as a DIY investor, you will find multi-baggers in the simplest, easiest way. Another area where change comes in and opportunities come in is change of ownership. Now let me give an example. Imagine there is a guy, there is a gentleman, CEO of a big company. The company is 50,000 crores. Okay? He's the CEO of the company. He joins a 100 crore company. What will happen? Will that guy who has 20 years of experience, he's a top-notch guy, Maharathi area ma, he knows everybody, everybody knows him, joins a small company. Will the company remain small? Is it possible? It is not possible. It is impossible. That company has to be larger. That name of the company is Shri Digvijay Cement. Name of the gentleman is Anil Sanghvi. He was the guy who was responsible in Ambuja being sold to wholesale. This is much recently Ambuja was bought out by Adani. Okay? So imagine if you notice this. Oh, why did he join this small company? Kuch to baat hai. How can he start a small company? Similar example, Tata Sons bought Tejas Network. Tata Group. Can Tata Group have a small company? Are you aware of a small company in Tata Group? Not by design. It may be a starting point, never an ending point. Right? Tata Group bought Tejas Network for a market cap of 4,000 crores. They put in 1,800 crores, but the market cap was 4,000. What is today's valuation? 18,000 crores in today's market. Some few days before it was 24,000 crores. Kassu na khabar hot ne, tame blindly Tejas Network lay lo ne, just because Tata bought it. Tata is buying it. Would have done some work, no? They would have done far more work than you and I. True? Trusted name, great business, it's into telecom, area of the future, 5G is coming up, 6G will come in the later. You will make money. As simple as that. Right? Another example which is this is a great example. A guy called Prabhakaran. Prabhakaran joined a company called Lloyd's Metal in, I think, 19 or 20, I forget the time frame mentioned there. At that time, its market cap was close to 700, 800 crores, 6,000, 7,000 crores. Today, Lloyd Metal is 75,000 crore market cap. You know why? You know why? Because he knows how to work in Naxal areas. He's considered the guy who can work in Naxal areas. No one else can go there, but then if I teaches her. But when Prabhakaran goes, he gets work done. So if you can spot that change and you can act on it, you have a multi-bagger in your hand. Right? So couple of other reasons where you have opportunities is demergers. Everyone knows where mergers, demergers. Right? That's a great space for opportunity. Because a merger demerger is nothing but how a company is becoming 2 companies. Right? And 2 different companies will have different allocations. So I'll give you a good example. There was a company called Orient Electric. Everyone knows Orient Electric? It used to be part of Orient Paper years back. Orient Paper had 2 businesses. Now it was not getting valuation of an electrical business whose P is always higher. So management said, let's demerge it. Orient Electric became a big money spinner for it. Mergers, IDFC merging with IDFC first. Ujjivan Financials merging with Ujjivan Small Finance first. These are all opportunities where money can be made. So as investors, be alert to changes, trace them, check them, and if there's an opportunity, buy them. Right? Similar opportunities comes during supply-demand mismatches, especially in companies which are cyclical, like steel, like paper, like cement. Those are opportunities. Or packaging film. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have steel capacity, X steel capacity. There's massive mandi. So no new steel capacity will come, correct? That's how the rules are. Suddenly demand starts coming in. There is no new capacity coming in. The prices start going up. If you can track this at a cyclical level, you would have cracked how to invest cyclicals. Last is technical breakouts. So whenever a stock does any kind of technical breakout, that's an opportunity to look at it. Why did a stock, after 15 years of being low, does a 52-week high? What's going on? Kaik to asa na? For some stock to go all-time high, would it not have to break its 52-week high? Can it straight away go to its all-time high? No, right? It will have to cross the levels. When it crosses 52-week high, why? What's going on? Something is there. That's an opportunity to research. Lastly, if you do all of this work, please make sure you track your performance. I meet investors who keep on telling me, sir, बहुत पैसा बना. I said, अच्छा, कितना रिटर्न? बोले वो नहीं पता, पर एक स्टॉक में ये हुआ, एक स्टॉक में हुआ. मैं बोला 1 अप्रैल से कितना बना? They don't have an answer. Do not be that investor. I'll tell you why. Because if you do not know how well you are doing, you don't deserve to get your allocation. Because you are providing the money to yourself, and you are also your fund manager. Imagine you play two roles. पैसा તમારા છે અને તમે invest બી તમે કરો છો. So you have to prove to the owner of the money, to yourself, whether you deserve that money. If say you invest and your returns are 10%, should you research? Should you invest? Because Indian equity market will give you 16, mutual fund will give you 18, experts will give you 20, 24. જાતે કેમ કરવાનું 10% માટે? આપણા ઈગો માટે? Of course not. Right? Activity જોઈતી હોય તો નાના percentage માટે કરવાનું. But do not fall into the trap of not tracking. Everyone here, as a homework, when you go back, you should know how to use XIRR, how to use CAGR. Very easy. Look up on the net, you'll find the formulas. Very easy to do. Right? If you ask me, I know my return from 2016 every year onwards. I track them. I want to know. Because if I don't do well, I don't want to give it to Prit, the money manager. I'll give it to Vatsal. I'll give it to someone else who can do a better job than me. હું મારી જાતને કેમ આપું? મારો લોસ કેમ કરું? So be ruthless. Thank you. I hope this was useful. I hope you gained some knowledge out of this from both what Vatsal and I said, and you can utilize it in your investing journey. And we are always available for questions. Mobile.
Running short of time, we have 2 to 3 quick questions.
Any advice on SIP and SWP?
Yeah, so SIP is when you want to create a corpus. SWP is when you have already created a corpus.
Yeah, but any advice on that? Because I heard that if you do SIP, it's more important to SWP also. When to withdraw that SIPs and reinvest that SIPs in other.
What is your age?
25.
अभी पैसे कमाते हो ना, तो फिर पैसे की ज़रूरत SWP में से क्यों है?
नहीं
Try to accumulate money through SIP for the next 20, 25, 30 years. Create a large corpus, then use it through SWP as a source of income.
No, perfect. Bang on. Yeah. Next question.
Hi, thank you first of all, Vatsal and Prit. It was very informative and educative. I have just one question. Like you mentioned, portfolio allocation 3 to 5. Always have a hard time averaging up. I have a good mindset when the stock falls down. If I believe in the stocks and I have a higher conviction on the stocks, then I'll average down. That's fine. But I always have a hard time averaging up because I don't know if it's like the margin of safety, if it matches to the true value of the stock. So could you give me more insights on like how can we change that psychology averaging up?
Absolutely. I think everyone starts with the fear of averaging up. The evolution of a great investor is when they start averaging up. Right? If you buy something at 100, it becomes 200, you're a buyer. At 400, you're a buyer. That's a sign of a mature investor. It basically means that you understand the value of the company, not the price. The price is 100, 200, 400, 600, fine. But the value could be far more. If you understand the value, you will not be afraid of buying. The price doesn't matter. Because the value of that business may have become far bigger. Look at Tejas Network, right? It's still very small. It's in telecom space. It's only 18,000 crore market cap. What do you think is going to happen in 10 years? It could be a 1,80,000 crore company. So averaging up can only happen if you understand value, not price. 200 price and 200 value are two very different things.
Thank you.
I would just like to add to what Mr. Prit said. So when you buy, first thesis of you buying into a stock is you already have conviction.
Correct.
If it has gone up, it means the market is delivering its valuation, whatever it is justified, right?
Correct.
Now there is a concept of back up the truck. If you don't back up the truck when earnings and stock price are in sync, then what's the point? Because large wealth is only created while consolidation. I have known nobody, even in Ahmedabad, who have portfolios worth 100, 200 crores and they have 100, 200 companies. It is only portfolios who are in 3-digit crores or 4-digit crores where most of their wealth is created in 2, 3, 4, 5 companies. So you have to buy more and more of the same conviction stock. That's it.
But that's what I do in SIPs when I do index fund investing or mutual fund investing. I don't care about the price. But when I'm trying to do investing in an individual company,
Correct.
that's where my
Because value.
value.
Value. If you understand value, you will have no issues.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Prit, you said more on fundamentals and Vatsal was more on data analysis and some fundamentals. What about the technical? How important it is for the investor to learn technical, because he has to undergo training, because technical is not something
Correct.
So what do you say? They have two questions. This one.
Yeah, so I think my personal take is that do you know how many great technical investors are out there? Can you give me a name of one great, 2 great, 3 great technical investors? You will struggle. If I ask you, give me names of 5 great fundamental investors, you will say Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, Warren Buffett, this, that, right? Fundamental investing is easier, right? Margin of safety is much. If you make a mistake, it's okay. The company will bounce back. You have time to correct. Technical is not easy. Technical is very hard, right? You need to maintain discipline. You need to understand technicals. You need to leave aside your own biases, right? And it is super hard to do well technically. Very few people have been able to master it. It's not that you can't master it, but it's a harder journey to do that. And you cannot cover it in this session. If it was technicals, we would need good 2-3 hours just for couple of initial methods of technical analysis.
To be frank, I am not a technical analyst, so better not to comment. And secondly, large investors and large wealth cannot be accumulated through technical analysis. That is what history has said. As Mr. Prit mentioned, that we don't know anybody who has created large investors through technical analysis. So it is better off to stay into the fundamental side of investing rather than technical side of investing.
Can it be said that fundamental should lead and technical should support, and together it makes a formidable?
Yeah, it could. Technofunda is a growing science. Today, quant-based, algorithmic-based funds are out there, and technicals has a role to play. I'm not denying that. It's just much harder to do it, right? It's not easy.
Yes.
You will have to invest significant time, energy, resources in it. Learning curve is much harder, right?
Yeah.
Because there you are timing the market.
Yeah, exactly.
In
Personal discussion after session is
If there's someone, yeah, we can take another question from someone.
This question goes to Mr. Prit.
Yes, sir.
I'm just asking one particular script, although there is a value, already inherent value is there.
Okay.
That is one company called Brightcom.
Right.
You remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you done any
I have.
analysis or some research on that? Mr.
Correct. I
Shankar Sharma, if you remember.
I understand, but I think one mandate we have here is to not talk of.
Just pinpoint some.
I really don't know Brightcom.
really
I don't track Brightcom.
Okay.
Sorry.
Which are the promising sector for next 10 years, according to you?
Yeah, so power generation,
Good question.
capital goods, logistics, building materials, housing finance, banks, of course. That's the only thing which is cheap since last 3 years. Yeah, that is what we...
I'll add to this. I think first is now 10-year views are hard to make because the market is very dynamic. I think every 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, 3 years, things are changing rapidly. So we should try to move away from a 10-year because disruption can happen. AI will come in. You don't know what will get disrupted and what happens to your 10-year view. Right? So the way I look at investing, I have a 3-year view. મને 3 વર્ષની સમજ પડે છે. એની અંદર power, whatever he said, the sectors are all perfect. So power, I think, is a great sector to be in because there is a huge demand. Finance તો જોઈશે જ. પૈસા લેણા વગર ક્યાંથી ધંધો થશે. Right? So these are perennial sectors, great demand, will do very well, right? Okay, one element I want to add here, to be careful with the change in America that is happening. As investors, the times ahead are very volatile. Highly volatile times are coming, right? Trump, you do not know how Trump will do and what he will do, but the impact will be massive. China will have massive impact, so will have India. So be ready for a roller coaster ride and keep all your money available, because you may get the chance of a lifetime to invest.
So that's perfect. But usually cash levels should be in between 5 to 10% anytime, and 90% as you cannot time the market. So it is not wise to have 50% cash and 50% in markets. It is better to be invested 85 to 90% at all times, and 5 to 10% of markets, in cash is a reasonable amount comparison to the portfolio by cost and not by value. This is very important to understand. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you everyone, and thank you Mr. Prit and Mr. Vatsal. It was very informative and interactive session. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on.